Hey, what's up, everyone? How you guys doing? All right? Just doing another random jump on the live stream hangout type situation. Thank you so much for joining me here. I trust all is well. What's been happening out there? You guys doing good? Let's see, how can I... There we go. All right, cool. Hey, what's happening, guys? You guys all good? Just on here today. Got some time to kill, so I thought we'd jump on, and we've got Initiation Hermetics here, of course, which is core text to the conversation, I guess, in a lot of ways. So yeah, what's happening? Are you guys doing well? I've got my friend here with me today. This is an older image, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about, the value of having training partners, organic training partners that are not, I guess, they don't talk back. Sorry, that didn't maybe come across the right way, but essentially, you can have people training partners, you can have item training partners, okay, and you can also have obviously animal training partners. Everything's a potential training partner, and so yeah, I just wanted to just talk about this for a bit because I was exposed to this idea through a few other teachers, and it was really highlighted to me on a video by Mark Erasmus talking about tree ChiKung, which is you essentially connect with the tree through mental transference, and there's a very tangible felt sensation of interaction with the other living being. And if you're out in the forest and you've got or you've just got a big tree there, the tree is emanating a life force, and this life force is going to be different to yours. It's going to offer a contrast, whereas another person, they're also going to have a different life force, but in the early stages especially, it's going to be not as different, perhaps, perhaps. And one way that you can create difference so that, there's something that stands out, it's very apparent, is go work with a thing that puts a heckload more of it out, like a big old elder tree, like just a ancient big, wow, that's a big tree. Okay, that thing's going to be putting out a torus field and an energy stream that will be quite perceivable. You're still going to have to tweak your to connect in some cases to pick it up, but because there's you're dealing with a much bigger thing as opposed to a human that's around the same, roughly the same kind of height, proportionally a giant tree. It's going to be like, going to be putting out a larger volume, a larger quantity, and that will be the immediate, noticeable, tangible connectivity point, if you will be that the amount of life force will be greater, and which will allow you to pick it up easier. Even if you're a bit of a sensitivity brick, you struggle to pick up on energy. And, I was like this for a very long time. It's one of the reasons why I got into Qigong, was because this is literally like, thousands year old sort of energy working systems, in their various forms. because I didn't find it in the system of Reiki. Although, if you read the right books on Reiki, you will find that there is a great emphasis on developing, well, they have their own form of ChiKung, which is called Ki Ko, or energy work, if you will. So, but this tree Qigong, I tell you, this is something to get straight into. You've probably got one out in the backyard, okay? And all you really need to do is sort of put your mind inside the tree. And one way you can do this is to essentially put your hands out. I'll come over here so you can see it a bit easier. And stretch out. You're stretching out. You're not just physically stretching, but you're almost like grabbing the sort of the outer peripherals of your energy field and your mental body, and you're pushing it out, and it's being led and sort of encouraged to move in that direction, and just you're pointing in that direction, okay, and you're sending your mind into the tree. Okay, now this is one way of doing it. Another way is to, put your hand on the tree, get into a nice kind of, I guess you might call it like a relaxed, buoyant posture. So, unlock the knees so that you're like all kind of springy, right? And then put your hand on the tree. Now, if you've done the building the ball exercise, this is going to help greatly because you've already become accustomed to the feeling of energy, right? So once you learn to put your mind on the energy and less on the any kind of physical tension or contraction or muscle stress or any of these types of things, if you stand there for a long time, you're going to be feeling, oh, my legs, or whatever. You'll get better at this. But, you could probably do it in a chair fine too. I haven't done it in a chair personally, but you probably could. You could sit with your back to the tree. But yeah, these I really love standing practices because there's just more quantity, and I want to be able to stand for long periods of time. But anyway, back to the conversation. There's a tree, okay, not this not this particular tree, or this little tree, this tree in aspiration. But you're essentially, putting your hand on the tree, and you build the ball first. Get your mind or your awareness on the sensation of the vital energy. And then, when you put your hand on the tree, you feel the tree. And you go, okay, I can feel the physical element of the tree. I can feel the tension, the pushback, the mass, if you will. I can feel this thing, this very physical object. And then what you do is that you put your mind on the feeling of the life force around the outside of the peripheral, okay? The energy, your own energy, right? And what you'll find is that, okay, all right, now I've got my mind on the energy. Then what you can do is that you can put your mind on the inside of the tube of your arm, if you will. And you need to move around because you're looking for some kind of tangible back and forth or energetic exchange here. I'm using lots of descriptive language as just kind of how I am, but connecting with a large living being and then just hanging out there and just paying attention to it and getting to know what's going on. And this will, the more you pay attention to it, the more you'll become familiar with it, the more you will notice how there is a two-way connection going on, and this is something to explore for no other reason than to, go and play or connect with a greater energy, life force emanating being. And this could be one of the greatest discoveries that you come upon in weeks, months, and years of practice, because in Hermetics, we are training energy. We are training our personal relationship to frequency. We are learning to understand the quality aspect of an energy, the type of flavor, and then the quantity or the volume or the amount, and how that can affect the quality as well. because as we have more, once we, oh, there's a thing there, oh wow, I'm playing with this thing, the more time you spend paying attention to it and you're building volume, then it's like, oh, there's not just one thing, there's a bunch of things in here. And you're able to go, wow, I've got so much of this thing to play with now, I'm noticing new explorable aspects of it. And this is a key takeaway here, because if you're working through this process, you are going to be encouraged as you move through to put your mind inside objects and to develop a new relationship with things that are outside of your physical shell. And what are you going to pick up? You may be like, yeah, I can actually feel my mind inside this thing forming to this shape, developing mental flexibility. You may find that, it's like, I'm getting an impression of a thing. You don't know what it is, but it's like, this is quite different. And there's something very, very obvious here. How curious. And you get your journal out and you note it down. You go, this is, and you use your best descriptor. You don't necessarily have to write a story about it. All right. But what you can do is just write down, I put my hand on a thing, I did a couple of things, and now this is what I'm noticing. So you write down a bit of the process and then the experience that you are having. And, then you go back and read it the next day and you try it again and you develop this methodology. And so when we're dealing with, energy at the different levels, we're essentially forming a type of a taxonomy or an understanding of the strata, the various strata or the layers of reality. And we're getting to know them. We're getting to know the vital, physical, the astral, emotional, and the mental, spiritual, and then eventually further up. But, even within these things, there's layers, right? So, we start off with the gross material. If I had a rock just out of the garden here, I'd bring it out and go, okay, this is what we're starting with, the raw material. Have I got a thing? Oh, I don't really have a thing. That's a shame. But you start off with this thing and then you explore this thing, and then suddenly there's a revelation, there's an unfolding of perception that occurs, and things will become, there'll be, aspects and elements that become apparent to you. And then, as you start to record these things, you're unconscious, your subconscious, or this part of you that sort of is the big storehouse of ideas and information that helps to organize. And, this is why, it's pretty early on in the process that Barden gives us some methods for bringing this kind of background computer of the unconscious, in alignment with our goals, because we want it to serve us. And finding out how it can serve us starts with just getting to know it and getting it on the page. But when it becomes this kind of this helper, if you will, in support of our efforts, there's new value. Any initial kind of wow, this is really great, this is working. That will become normalized over time as you develop. As you step up another level, if you will, just using that sort of visual kind of idea. You step up, you go wow, and then you normalize with it. You take ownership of it, and you're like, okay, right, I'm ready to keep moving forward, and and there's, like I said, there's an unfolding or a flowering or a revealing of new things to take notice of. And this is using the trees, big trees, can give you a very satisfying and also immediate interaction that can greatly accelerate your if we call it clairsentient, or the subtle sense of touch and feeling, relationship to energy, if you will. And so before we can start talking about the different slices of energy and the various levels, we've just got to first get kind of cool with what's immediately available to us, because we're Hermeticists. This is generally a very ground up approach. We're working with what we got. We're developing sense perception. We're stretching those muscles so they can pick up, and they can discern more, and they can identify more. And big old trees are a really great way of doing that. So if you've just tuned in now, go back to the beginning of the video if you like, if you want to get the how of how to do this. So yeah, I'm just sort of jumping on, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Talking about, I've got my little friend here. This is an old training partner. I'm not sure if this one's still with me, but you can see that this little house plant is flourishing. And, this is a much smaller tree, if you will. It's like the kitten that wants to be the tiger or the lion. That's how they see themselves, maybe. But my little friend here, I would spend time with this friend, and put my mind in and practice things like healing or mental transference, getting to know it. But like I said, there's a energy volume emanating difference. There's like I'm a big thing compared to this little small thing, and I'm probably putting out a lot more actual stuff out into the around me. There's a much more perceivable quantity or volume of energy. But my little friend here, this is great. He's great for, I think this one I think I called Steve. I like to give them names to have a personal connection with them. Yeah, I care. It's a great. But I put my mind inside and then try and pick up on, like, oh, I want to pick up on the life signature or the energy signature of this little friend, and that can be quite challenging because with a big tree though, not so much. It's like there's just this big, almost what you might call like a hot air balloon size sort of torus field shape size of this giant oak tree, and it's quite easily perceivable. Oh, hey, what's up, Mystery College? Great to see you. Thank you so much. Hey, Tim. Always a pleasure, sir. You have a great year of the snake, too. So, yeah, this is kind of like, I just wanted to do like, bring in a little something at the beginning of the live stream. Oh, not that one. To say, here's a little thing to get you cracking. So yeah, at the beginning of the live stream, there's a little thing you can have a play with here. But essentially, I'm just hanging out for a bit before I go out and do some other things. So if anyone's got any questions or just wants to hang out, chat, whatever, I'm right here. But developing energy sensitivity is, it's a key aspect of becoming more aware of the nature of reality, because there is a very tangible energy component. So this is our subtle sense of touch, or our sort of our water element sense capability, and it's an easy one to do, easy one to develop, because we just start off with building the ball. We go, oh yeah, I can feel this energy. Wow, look at that. And then and you start pour breathing it, like this feeling. So you put your mind on the feeling. Maybe you put your mind in between your hands. You might be like, yeah, I can kind of feel it around my head. I tell you what, one of the hidden gems of the Reiki system is self-treatment, and not putting your hands on you, but putting your hands just outside of you, just above you, near you. And one of them is that you do this head treatment, right? So try building the ball around your head and start to notice the sensations. You'll be quite surprised at what will pop up. And in the initial stages, it's just the perception of energy. You want to be like, wow, there's something going on here. And you can call it whatever you want. But we're developing we've found a new thing that's caught our attention. It's caught our interest. And we're going to explore that. So we spend time just going, wow, this is really interesting. What if I do it here? What if I do, oh my gosh, I do it just above my crown. I'm feeling it's very sensitive here. Where is it sensitive? It's really sensitive around there, and then kind of there, but it's different. And so we're exploring, a sensitive part of the body. The face and the head's very sensitive, obviously, and I think our hands generally are probably the most sensitive part. Um, you know, we use them so much for things, for small things. So, well, they're at least highly sensitive. And, these things are so valuable to explore because they give us, they can help to keep the, because sometimes when things get normalized and we're just cranking repetitive practice, it's good to keep it engaging. Some people out there will be the fire element or the earth element of just yeah, you know. But the water element person might be like, oh, I really want to enjoy this, like or get into just chill back with it and da, da, da. Whereas the air element person might be like, I really want to have fun with this and just and and get to know this sort of thing, Whereas and we can slice and dice this up how you like, but coming from the background of being a guitar teacher and a music teacher and observing, what motivates students. Some of them would come because they wanted to hang out with their friends and they got to strum along and have a good time. Awesome. Some of them showed up because they just wanted to know. They were like, this is so fascinating. I just want to know. I mean, they practiced and they got good as a result of their efforts, but they were just really curious about like music theory. Oh my gosh, this is so interesting, and I can turn theory into a perceivable thing, being music. This is really interesting. Then I'd have people that were just, they were just like, yeah, this is the coolest thing ever, man. I want to do this. Yeah, this is awesome. And maybe it's because they wanted to impress their friends or their family or whatever it was. Uh, and then some students would just come and hang out because they, like I said, when it might have been social, but it was also like, mum and dad are sending me here because I trust them and I want to do right by them, and they're good kids and they listen to their parents and that's fine too, but whatever reason they were there for, okay, also kind of sidled up or was related to how they were maybe going to learn. And so, learning about different learning styles, because, you know, I looked for it. And here in New Zealand, well, back then when I was looking, we didn't have a course to become a music teacher. We had a course to become a musician, and we had a course to become a teacher. But if you wanted to become, say, a guitar teacher, you would probably do both or one, and then you would learn the other skills on the job. But I became a better guitar teacher. I became a guitar teacher by teaching kids guitar, and I went and studied music. I did it for about a year. I've been playing for probably a good 8-9 years, and I'm self-taught. I was very blessed to have been able to connect with some exceptional musicians in my life. I actually can't believe it. They're not necessarily all famous, but my gosh, they were capable in so many ways. They weren't just technically proficient. They were able to produce music that hit you in a certain way that made you go, oh, this is beautiful. Why, I've heard someone play this before, but the way that they do it, their take on it, their presentation style, the way they play the notes, oh my gosh. And for me, that was where it was at. These people had the magic touch. And, I think that's somewhat parallels, how we may feel about our level of capability with metaphysical skills and development. Is like, how do you sort of determine where you're at. Are you happy with where you're at? Like, I feel stuck. It doesn't matter what sort of discipline or development process you're involved in, or skill set, whatever. If you're working on something, you might hit a plateau, and you got to kind of figure out how to move beyond that to take it to a new thing. And one of those ways to do it is to look at the skill set for what it is, and then see how you can apply it to different things. So, for example, if you're working on concentration, you might be looking at a spot on the wall, and you've got your timer, and you're like, right, I'm going to put that for 2 minutes, or I'm going to hold it in my hand and I'm going to click it once my attention fails, and then that's my metric. But you might be like, well, struggling to stay a bit engaged with this, actually. So that's when you bring on the feeling of the life force, and then you learn how to sort of unlink your mind into the field, or just hold that feeling between your hands and then just concentrate on that feeling. And that's interesting. So you find new ways to exercise the skill that you're developing. And that helps to retain interest. Okay. And when you're more engaged, if you're if you're just doing dumbbells and you're thinking about doing other things, you'll still get a workout, right? You might also do yourself a nasty, because if you're playing with big things, there's more of a chance of hurting yourself. But the more you're able to focus on the thing, the more value you're going to be able to pull out of it. But maintaining in your engagement and immersion in the thing that you're doing, man, that's going to feed it. Like, it's going to just add so much more enjoyment and depth and potential for the flowering of yourself, and not just in that particular exercise. You've got to remember that the exercises in this book, right? There's a relationship between them all. And so when you practice this one, it's actually going to help this one, right? So, oh, hey, Jake, thank you so much for tuning in. Making dinner? What is it? Oh, yeah, okay, it must be there at that time. Thank you. Yes, I'm doing very well. And it's great to have everyone here. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. We're just talking about developing, sensitivity and a relationship to whatever practice we're engaged in. I'm trying to speak as broadly as possible here. I'm going to keep referring back to this because I've done a lot of hunting. I'm pretty satisfied with the exercises in this, and the way it's written. So, there's so much value in this book, Franz Barden's Initiation into Hermetics. And, I'm really looking forward to, sharing this with the audience, that sort of starts to aggregate towards the channel and towards my other efforts. I am involved in, I'm actually going to be hosting or co-hosting another show shortly. So I'll bring that up. So hang on, what we'll do is that, oh geez, what am I doing here? Okay, let's just get rid of that one. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm doing it all on the fly here, guys. So thank you for sticking with me. I'm just going to pull that guy off there, and then I'm going to doodly-doo, pull this one over here, and go that one there, that one there. I need to have a bit of a tighter setup with this, don't I? Thank you for being so patient, everyone. So I've been offered a pretty amazing opportunity with a couple of good friends of mine. And let's just make that full screen. And let's do that one, and then that one, and then that one, and then that one. it go? Okay, we'll just crop that down a bit. So this is on YouTube. This is a show that I'm going to be on with my friends Solretta and Greg. And what I'm really excited about is that there's a whole other community that I kind of, I'm mostly sort of spending time in the sort of Bard and Hermetics magic community, largely. But I'm slowly sort of broadening the scope because there's a lot of people in the sort of what I would call the larger spiritual community. This includes things like ancient civilizations, people curious about UFO, conspiracy, forbidden technologies, and all these types of things. And that's sort of where I started. I started with what I could find when I first started looking into all these topics about 10 odd years ago. And I've got to say, it's been a long journey, but I've been looking for how, new ways to explore consciousness and meditation. And of all of the things that I discovered that I found to be of greatest value, it was by far was the topic of magic. And, probably not in the way that most people think. And I'm not talking about getting dressed up in robes and not that I'm knocking that because, I ritual magic is what it is. It doesn't actually know. Sorry, guys. There we go. Do some nose exercises, some nose qigong, and there's a lot of people who are. There's going to be a lot of people in that community, like myself, who were looking for, really solid teachings in the sort of the wider spiritual communities. So I'm really excited to be on. I think we're going to be on Solretta's channel, and she's got about 5,000 subs on there. And we're going to be, Greg's got an audience too. He's quite well known in Australia as a Reiki and astral travel guy. He's probably one of the most prolific people on the topic in the country, in Aussie, I would say. Next to maybe someone like Robert Bruce. Robert Bruce, was that his name? He passed away, I think, last year. R.I.P. brother Robert. But yeah, so really excited to sort of have the opportunity to be part of that situation. And we can sort of bridge into a lot of the topics that, other members of the community are talking about. And I guess what I'll find myself doing, I can kind of sense it now, is that I'll be seeking to translate what they're telling me about the audience, and I'll be talking to Greg and Solretta too, because we're all experiencers, if you want to use that term. We've had and continue to have experiences, and part of the goal of the journey is to sort of distill the value and then share. How is it valuable to other people if I share this? How can I is it enunciate or sort of derive value from an experience that I'm happy to share? I mean, generally speaking, we don't share everything, right? But we do share, aspects of the experience that we think may be useful for others because there's maybe a moral in the story, or there was like, everyone thinks this, but this is what I experienced. And so that might make you think about something differently. Now, that's not to say that, that negates your experience. But what it does do is it makes you go, because just, blind faith in a teacher or a topic or something of this nature, that can create a set of walls and parameters that, at some point will have to be broken down if you want to progress further, because you can get locked into a space that's restricted, and it's a limited hangout. It's not necessarily a non-valuable hangout, but you explore the length, girth, and width of the environment, lucid dreaming environment, mental transfer into an object, a type of experience, a type of a state, and then go, okay, well, this is great and all, but is there anything beyond that? What's beyond what we know? Well, it's the unknown, isn't it? What is it? There's the known, the unknown, and then the unknowable. Although that last one, that is a kind of a potential sort of restriction in and of itself. Too sort of caught up on that, but yeah, being able to sort of share this knowledge with the wider sort of, like I say, spiritual community. This is pretty fun. Is that my phone buzzing? I think it is. I thought I put it on silent. So I'll just do that now. So yeah, very pleased to be able to join that community and see what's up. Oh, wonderful, Jake. Yes, thank you. Yeah, we're all really looking forward to it. We've known each other for many, many years, and even though, oh, hey, thank you. I really appreciate that, Jake. That's actually really wonderful to hear because, you know, I'm just trying to be myself and find my own personal unique take on things from my point of experience. I could just share things that I've read and heard, but ideally I'm sharing from, in all cases, I'm sharing from what I've personally experienced, because then I have some, for me, there's a personal validity in that. I can repeat what I've heard, which, sometimes I do, and I'll generally preface that with a statement like, oh, this person said that, whatever. But, I'm really grateful for that, man. Thank you. So, yeah, anyway, so Greg, Sol, and myself, we're going to do this show. And, we've tried this, this heading here, Awakening Insider. I kind of like that. So, yeah, really looking forward to this because they're just really nice people, and their own audiences are very, very cool. They're a wonderfully warm audience, and yeah, this is just going to be a lot of fun. So, really looking forward to it. Okay, let's do that. Okay, let's pull that down. And let's bring up my friend again. All right, here we go. Yeah, so the conversation, this live stream started off, and we're talking about the value of training partners and choosing your training partners, depending on what the outcomes are that you seek. Now, something else to consider is that there are what we might term inanimate objects, like a thing. Like, okay, so for example, here's a pen, right? And you can put your mind inside the pen. Now, in the early stages, you're really just putting your mind inside and just sort of wandering around inside the object. You are still externalizing it. That's the key point here. You are essentially putting your consciousness, or your mental body, if you will, inside what appears to be an external sort of object, something that's outside of your physical shell. And so there's a displacement of sort. And when you put your mind in there, you are essentially freeing it from the activities of and the environment of the body and the soup, putting it into a thing that has its own uniqueness, and then you're just spending time in that and exploring it with your mind, and then picking up what you notice, what you are experiencing. And there's lots of different objects that you can do with this. And like I said at the beginning of this stream, I was talking about the value of working with tree ChiKung, where you go out into the forest or into the backyard or just into the park, and you find a big, big tree, and you just put your mind inside the tree. You relocate, you displace, you send it. Okay. And so, here's your mind at the moment. Now you're going to put yourself over here, sort of thing. Your body's still here, but your mind or your awareness or your spirit, you could call it that, you're going to put it outside. It's not limited by space, and it's sendable, if you will. You can send it. So but back to this more inanimate type object. A tree could be considered an inanimate object, but it still has animation because it has movement inside it. There is water. There are water transport systems. There's activity in the form of molecules and cells and these types of things in action. And one thing that we might initially pick up on is that there is a kind of an activity that's different to what we're usually accustomed when our mind or our mental body that we can externalize what we notice inside our body. And there is, those are the things that we want to pick up on. And so, getting a good range of descriptive language. I remember going to years ago when I used to enjoy things like drinking and partying and whatnot. Definitely not so much nowadays. I went to this whiskey tasting, and the guy brings out this range of these single. They were single malt whiskies in some cases. They were all around about between 80 and 120 New Zealand dollars, which is that's sizable. You can buy, I think, a bottle of whiskey for maybe $30 or something, or $20 even. It's going to be pretty average, or is it? Sorry, I'll use modern day terms. It'll be pretty mid. All right. See, I'm cool. I'm still street, right? And anyway, he's like, okay, all right. So you'd get a little cup, and you'd put a bit of this whiskey in, and you'd smell it, you'd look at it. Okay. You'd be like, oh yeah, okay. What do we see, everyone? So we'd have these sort of like sensory experiences of it. This is just what we're doing with Hermetics. This is so related. It's awesome. Okay. So it's like, okay, well, what do you see? Well, it's kind of got this dark amber, sort of like burnt orange hue to it, maybe. And okay, all right, sweet. And so he'd write these, he'd go, right, okay, go everyone, hit me with your keywords, your descriptive keywords. And so we'd write that up. This is identical to your journaling process. You're recording what you're noticing. Okay. So then, of course, he says, all right, so let's okay, we're not going to hold it up to our ear because we're probably not going to hear anything, even if we swish it around, like it's going to be like, yeah, that's too far out. But what was the next thing? We would smell it. What do you smell? Oh, I smell it's strong. It's really pungent. It's really aromatic. It's really strong. It's got I'm trying to remember the words for the smell, but it was like, wow, this has got a really strong sense of alcohol about it. Some whiskey, you're going to develop these scales, because if you pick up the next one and you go, oh, this one's much softer on the nose. Oh, softer on the nose. That's a good one. This one's tart on the nose, or whatever, Okay, so that's the smell, right? And then, of course, you would have the ultimate, which is like, all right, well, not quite the ultimate, but you drink a little bit of this and you roll it, swish it around your mouth. We might just let it sit on your tongue. Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you pick up on? And then you might swish it around. You might move it around your tongue. You've got different sense capacities on different places on your tongue. And we'd record these. And he says, all right, what do you take? Oh, I can. There's soft oak tannins, or there's this has got it's very peat-y. A lot of these words I learned while I was there because I'd never come across them before. And so what I'm saying to you here is that this is a very relatable and relevant sort of topic for comparison, because I'm encouraging those of you who are on the initiation into Hermetics pathway, who are working on sense perception in the form of mental transference, where you're putting your mind into an object to explore it, you need to have some language to record things. Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it buoyant? Is there a sense of levity about it? I'm using words related to essentially, up and down, air and earth element, and all the words that we might use to describe between heaviness and lightness. Has it got a natural kind of floaty buoyancy to it, or is it like a zinger that goes straight up? Is it really heavy, or is it like a soft fall? Okay. And what I've found is that learning to write, this is a big part of this year for me. I'm spending a lot of time listening to the podcasts. I've got them in my ears about, writing, the value of writing. I'm listening to a lot of intelligent people speak from various topics, because I want to get my vocabulary width and range and depth, these types of things, to be more, to fill it out. Because, hey, look, you know how this works, right? Once you get on the path and you're right, I'm all in, things are going to show up that are going to have they may not initially be useful. You may not be able to identify the value, but you follow the threads. It's like, I remember just like a book would fall in my lap and I'd be like, I don't want to read that. And I'm like, no, wait a minute, hang on. I'm kind of following the path there. Serendipity or synchronicity or synchromysticity, something like synchromisticity, synchromystic something. Anyway, these things would fall in my lap and I'm like, okay, I'm going to read this. I got to follow this. So I read the book and I'm like, it's actually not a bad book. I wouldn't have normally got this kind of book out. There's important things for you to discover outside of your preferences and tastes. And I think that's part of the unfolding process, is to sort of widen your horizons where you wouldn't normally sort of stick. It kind of takes you out of your usual kind of operating to widen your horizons and that. So I'd read this book and then, I was like, well, that was a great story, but there'd be some key takeaway. And that key takeaway, it's funny, the book might be about subject X, but there was a key word or a passage in there that sparked a new curiosity journey or an interest that led me somewhere else. And this was the best, I love reading. I've got to say, I spend a lot of time reading a lot of familiar material, and I probably listen to more diverse conversations. I'm getting back into getting diverse with my reading again. A key part of my sort of operational capacity right now, in this point of time, is nutting this one out, getting intrinsically, intensely intimate with them. I've sort of got a good broad grasp of them, I would like to think, but I'm really trying to zero it down. But that happens essentially through doing the practices and the non-verbal understandings, or the unspeakable, or not, things that are tricky to put into words, so I recognize that there's these things in my mind that want expression, or these experiences that I'm having that I want to express somehow in a useful, valuable way, but I don't have the words, so I need to go find them words, or find them metaphors, or find that storytelling way, because some things you can explain with 2 words, some things you can explain or describe. Okay, that's another good word, describe and explain, and learning, understanding the difference between those two. Some things are going to require a story, a lead up, a paragraph. You're going to have to paint context using your vocabulary and your skillful deployment of vocabulary, right? So, yeah, this is really fun. And getting better at describing and explaining, within my capacities, is helping me sort of form an idea of my path ahead. I'm on a service path. When, for example, I'm not getting clients for Reiki or, teaching various other things, I have to remain nimble. I get the feeling I'm not supposed to get too comfy in one spot. I get nudged, and I have all sorts of opportunities put in front of me to expand myself. One good example of this was a couple of years ago when I met a friend over the hill. We all know the same people, and he lives just over the hill, and he's a top tier game dev. Working with softwares like Unreal Engine and Blender, and learning about the opportunities within those environments. And also, I got into puzzle creation as well. Like making puzzles, and given a basic set of ideas and learning how to get creative with them, how they can be applied in the game environment. And there's a lot of transferable skill sets with that, because I don't want to give too much away, but I'm talking to someone a little bit at the moment about an idea for the channel, even just a one-off event that I think is going to be pretty damn cool and fun, and feeds directly into your Hermetics practice. Okay, into skill set acquisition and the development process. So, we've got some comments. What do we got? Tree teachers are the best. They are. It's funny. You may meet a grumpy tree. Wouldn't that be funny? How do you know what a grumpy tree comes across like? Maybe it's the only tree in the park, and there's a whole bunch of angry people that live around it, and he's like, trees are just doing their thing. Jive Cat the Magnificent. I love that. That's a cool name. I'm great. Thank you. Yeah. It did start. Well, I'm starting off with tree qigong. So yeah, I'm basically just we're talking about Barden as the Barden collection of exercises and the Barden pathway. I haven't gone into any kind of great distinction between the various. If you can cherry pick exercises if you want, but there's also the pathway that Barden's laid out and why he laid it out that way. But this is more about this particular stream started off with talking about training partners and energy sensitivity. So great to have you here with us, Jive Cat, and thank you, Jake. So anyway, back to training partners. So what you're going to find is that inanimate objects are going to give you, there's going to be different qualities of them. So, for example, you could have a rock, and that's going to come across like this, or it's going to provide you with, sensory input data of a type. Remember, we're developing our spirit senses or our mental bodies, senses. We can send this thing off into the world, and we can collect data and then bring it back, and it's going to be colored somewhat, and that's why we have purification and refinement techniques for to help us clean up the signal, if you will, so that we're not getting a colored or a tainted experience. Now, here's the cool part, right? Now, so trees, they kind of stand still. They're not going anywhere. They're pretty reliable, loyal friends. You can just go out to the local park and hang out with the tree. I've got a park up the road, and there's all these different trees, and they all have a different signature. And so moving between different species of trees, or genuses, or I think the genuses, anyway, moving between different types of trees, and then noticing, wow, okay, first of all, this giant tree here, this has got a really loud feeling to it. And then I moved to the next big tree, which is a different type of tree. The first tree was an oak. This one's I don't know, like a pine tree, perhaps. And it's like, this thing also pumps out a lot of stuff that I can pick up, but it's got a whole different kind of flavor, if you will, or it's got a different kind of, the texture of the feeling of the energy is different. It's like, oh, that's interesting. So you're noting these things down by developing your descriptive language. And so here's a thing. One really fun, here's some things. So getting images of sacred objects, like going online, you may have heard this conversation before, and looking at, it might be an old Renaissance period painting of Jesus, for example. And, this can be pretty fun. Or it might be the Buddha, or it might be, it could be anything. It could be a sacred image or a mandala. And you put your mind in there and you experience it. And sometimes you're going to be like, whoa, but if you before you throw yourself into like something that's really loud and really full on, I would say, work on something a bit closer to the ground, like a tree, because you're going to get the experience of the volume of a very sort of a very, what you might, I don't want to say it's a natural energy, because it's not saying that these sacred items are not natural, but there is a human hand at play there. But these trees are just doing their thing, and you're just exploring their natural cycle. So sacred objects. But even before the sacred objects, I mean, check this out, right? So let's say you're exploring mental transference, which on one hand, you're putting your mind inside an object and you're exploring that object from inside. You're poking around and going, oh, yeah, okay. And your mind is learning to conform to different shapes. Like, you put your mind inside a glass of water, and then your mind becomes the glass of water. Now, we're not doing anything to the water. We're just popping in for a visit. Hello there. How are you? Well, I'm good, thanks. I would not shake it too much. There's electronic equipment here. But tastes pretty good. But your mind's going to learn how to form that shape by moving around inside it and tracing a pattern inside it. Your mind's going to sort of like move around, and you're going to go up and down. Okay, here's the top, here's the bottom, here's the left, here's the right. I see it's a circular shape. And your mind will start to learn to become that shape. And so that exercises mental flexibility, but we can also, as part of that exercise, we're also learning to see what data we collect while we're inside that object. We're picking up on impressions, we're picking up on textures, we're picking up on these the sensory data that our spirit, our transferable spirit, the spirit we can externalize, our mental body, if you will, we can send it to this thing, put it inside, and we go, wow, there's the stuff. And if I put my mind in that other object, it's like, oh, wow, there's something different in there. That's why it's good to maybe have a couple of things, like a couple of big trees, so you can, first of all, one step of the ladder at a time. You want to pick up on there's a thing there, and then you use contrast. So another way to do this is to get things like crystals. And, it obviously in Initiation to Hermetics, Mr. Barden quite rightly suggests that you start with, simple shapes that, are not, symmetry is easy to work with, like spheres. And, here's a green calcite cube. Yeah, and it's got a little bit of an imperfection in there, if you will, but it's a perfect whatever it is. So I'm going to put my mind in there and go, what do I pick up on? Well, it's definitely very green, and it's quite dense. I get a feeling of like a denseness. Okay, remember, this is about initial experience. This is not about, if we want to go a bit further, moving through the three transformations and exploring the different layers within it. We're not doing depth point here. We're not going to the stillness underlying it. We're just like going, I wonder what's happening on the inside of this green calcite cube. So is it calcite? No, it's not calcite. What is it? It's malachite. That's the one I'm thinking of. It's a malachite one. Now, you don't want to get your malachite wet, guys. I got my malachite wet. It formed a crust. Not pretty. It's kind of gross now. And apparently it's actually toxic to humans. All right? Just want to say. But this here has an energy signature of its own. And so you could have two cubes of different crystals, and your mind becomes accustomed to the forming the shape of the cube. But like the two different species of trees that put this thing out, now you're exploring the internal qualities, or the qualities. I won't say internal because it is what it is. It's like if you had another cube of like, I don't know, like I think like this one here, it's a hematite, I think, ring. It's like a silver dark thing. I think it might be magnetic. Probably shouldn't have it too close to my computer. But if I had one full of that was a shape of, like a cube, how would it be different? How could I sense that there was a difference there? In the early stages, you might be like, well, if I put my mind in there, there's definitely a difference to when it's just sitting inside my normal body. Because remember, once you finish, your mental body just snaps back into place, pretty much, right? But when I put my mind into this hematite cube, it's still different, but it's not as different. So it's like, that's okay, But what's important is that there's a difference initially. And the more time you spend with exploring this thing by like going, it's really interesting. I can totally feel like I'm inside this cube here and I'm picking up on this stuff. And then all of a sudden a new thing will pop up. Oh, okay. And then, so that's why concentration is really valuable skill, because it enables us to retain the activity and the task at hand without being distracted and pulled out of it, without extra noise entering into this relationship we have. And then as the granularity, or as the microscope, what do they call it? The when you drill down, or pinch a zoom, when you zoom in, new things appear. And now you go, oh, wow. And then what you do is then you go, okay, so then you grab your other cube and you put your mind inside that hematite cube or whatever. And you're like, okay, I can feel, now there's a difference. So there's the initial experience, which grants us there's something going on. Then it just is a basic way of putting it. And then there is the sort of, there's the unfolding layers. The more time we spend in there, the more time we spend in this new neighborhood, the more sorts of things we will discover. It's like, I walk around my neighborhood and I'm like, oh, yeah, I know this place. And then I spend more time walking around the neighborhood, and it's like suddenly I find a little alleyway or a like a little thing in between two houses, and it's like, oh, this is a public walkway. Where does this go? I've never seen this before. And you go down, it's like, oh, look at this! I found a new place to chill and practice. That's completely parallel. Hey, what's up, Ken? Thank you so much for joining us. Really cool. Really cool to have some people here on the chat with me. I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you so much, guys, girls, and everything else, and what for and in between. Now, Ultra Claves Hermetium. Hello there. Welcome. That name rings a bell. I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much for calling in. We've just been talking about, as usual, I will often just bring this book up because, that's part of what we're doing here. We're talking about mental transference and the value of training partners in their various forms, and how we can add some variety into our practice by going, okay, right, let's say I'm going to work on concentration today, or let's keep it mental transference. I'm going to work with a big tree, or I'm going to work with, like a sacred object. I might pull up a picture of the Buddha or something like this. And I'm going to put my mind in there. Is that our Tony? I might be wrong, but if it is, g'day, mate. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for joining in. So what we're doing is that to develop our perceptual capabilities and capacities for picking up new data streams using our mental body, which we can project into things. It's good to have a bunch of stuff to play with, some variety, because playing the same old song all the time, you know, you may start losing engagement and immersion. Hey, what up, Randy? Good to see you. Oh man, we've got the whole crew here. Yeah, so picking things. You first of all, you want to be able to detect that there's something going on. You want to be satisfied that you're like, wow, there's something here. Like, you know, or that might be your initial response, especially if you're a bit skeptical about these practices. But once you're on board and going, wow, this stuff is worth checking out, then what you want to do is expand your variety, if you will, of explorable items. What you want to do. How do I feel about saying that to people? You guys have got to kind of figure this out for yourselves. So I don't want to push anything. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Playing with different crystals and interesting objects keeps attention on the trend. Yep, absolutely. Well put. Thank you, Ultraclave Cymedium. Yeah, so this is like kind of where it's all at. It's like keep it interesting for yourself, and we live in an age of variety. There's that word again, and we're working on building cognitive faculties, if you will, or mental capacities that have maybe degraded somewhat because of scrolling, because of food choices, because of lifestyle, because of environment, because of this, because of that, and even age, right? And so ain't nothing wrong with keeping yourself sharp, and but making that interesting. Like, I know some people will just love to sit there with their headphones on and listen to music. I mean, you can use that to practice your hermetics. Yes, absolutely. Got to keep practicing. You want the fruit, you got to keep climbing the tree, man, because the sweeter stuff's always going to be at the top. The sweeter what is it? The higher the fruit, the sweeter the fruit, or something like that. But yeah, keeping it interesting for yourself by having an arrangement of, getting creative with it. And, there's a bit of, I guess, disagreement in the Barden community about, how far you can take your own creativity with the practice. And that's okay. People can talk. That's fine. Really it's up to you, like when you understand, when you're confident about your understanding of what's going on, uh, you can make modifications to how and what you do, and creative licenses encouraged in the book when it comes to what are you going to visualize in your mind. What are you going to think about? Like you might start off with a square, like a simple line drawing, like a white square, and then maybe you fill it and maybe it's a line square, and then maybe you turn it into a circle and then a line circle, or you might just go, listen, I actually just want to think about a cat. I saw a cat and it was a cute cat and it was funny and it was hilarious, and it's just kind of like, and I've got that image, that moving image in my mind right now, and it's easy for me to hold that. Perfect. Play to your strengths, get confident, get interested in it, and watch how that interest fuels those parts of you that are less interested in other parts of the journey. Like there's a really great, I think Mark Rasmus coined it, or it's probably someone else mentioned it too, but you've got this net and all these different nodes on the net where the net sort of cross over in that, and one part picks up all parts. There's great value in enjoying what you do, especially if you're in a good position to do that. And I know many of you will probably have a very different life to myself, and there may be challenges, but you've developed resilience, which helps you sort of like these things don't get to you. Okay. But, generally speaking, what you like. You might be like listening to music. You might like watching movies. You might like riding your bike, you might like hanging out with friends and family, you might be diddly-doodly-doo. And finding ways to make those activities more enjoyable will just add to your overall quality of life, and that will radiate outwards, and basically you'll become a fun, enjoyable person, and other people will see that and maybe start emulating and aspiring to that, and that'll infect other people, and it just ripples outwards, and the world starts maybe turning into a better place. Yeah, it just doesn't happen. That's that kind of like I said. One exercise in the book is related to another exercise. But the book starts off with your base level capacities of things like concentration, like being able to just watch your thoughts and just free yourself from how those thoughts can set off, um, emotions and reactions, and just, old patterns. They trigger patterns that are just, take you out of the moment, right? And then concentration. Oh my gosh, gee whiz, how valuable would that be to teach in today's environment of ever shortening and decreasing attention spans? And what about vacancy of mind? The third exercise. This isn't step one. This is like the very beginning, baseline cognitive skills. Being able to empty your mind and just sit there in the complete peace and silence of a void, to give your brain and your mind, and however you choose to reference your thought management, your thought creativity management, the desktop of your mind, just to clear that. It's like getting up away from your workbench or your desk and going off down to the beach and not thinking about anything. It's, the you soon become acutely aware of how each layer of reality, each one of your bodies, each one of your dantian, each one of your tanden, each one of your mental, emotional, and physical, or spirit, soul, and vital, how they use energy, or how they have a fuel source that you feel being expended. When you're when you learn to really nail watching your thoughts, and then just letting things go, and just like you're just watching, you're not engaging, you'll start to feel these layers of mental fatigue just lift, because all these curiosity tendrils, you're thinking about this, that, the other thing, and you've formed a connection with them. They suddenly recede, pull back, and they're just things that are happening. You're sitting in a park and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, but you're not thinking about it. You're not occupying your thought processes with whatever you're looking at. There's just a thing. Oh, look, there's a thing over there. Whoop-de-doo. I'm just looking at it. That's it. And then it goes past. And you might be like, oh, this is so relaxing. Because why? Because you're not thinking about stuff. And so when you get to vacancy of mind, you're just able to go, oh, okay, it's time to give that whole thing a break. Because when it's on all the time, it's going to wear you out. It's going to have a whole bunch of potential pathologies. But yeah, like one thing feeds into another thing. But yeah, just back on that, playing to your strengths. When you join a band, right? Like we used to have these instrument tryouts at the schools, and we would, the kids would come with their parents either in the morning before school or straight after school, and they would wander around the instruments. And there'd be a teacher there who was proficient. It's, they'd usually had a specialty or a few specialties, and then they were sort of like, teaching beginner level things on some other things. But essentially the students could come in, and there'd be 2 or 3 teachers there who had there was a broad enough experiential knowledge basis that the student and the parent could come in, and the student could go around and try the instrument. The teacher could help them sit with it and hold it and produce sound. And you'd be looking for natural affinity or predilection or an interest, a spark of interest in a particular thing. The kid might sit down with a guitar and go, oh man, this is it. To be fair, everyone wants to play guitar usually. If they're not a singer, you know, you can just use your fingers to make nice sounds. You know, developing vocal that's a whole nother conversation, but you know, maybe they'll sit down and there'll be an oboe there or a clarinet, and they'll get onto that and they'll show them how to, or a violin. Here's how you make a sound on a violin, you know, or a glockenspiel, or a you know, you name it. And one of those is going to make the kid go, oh, I want to do this one. Okay, let's do that. And then what you do as a teacher is that now that their interest has been piqued, there's ways to bring the values or the potential values of those other instruments, what they offer. Because some instruments you're using your fingers, like fine motor skills. Some of them you're using more of these sort of gross motor skills. Some of them are much more, you know, quite cerebral. Some of them are much more felt, like an acoustic guitar up against your body. You can feel that, the resonating chamber, da 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 da. You know, you can bring the value that those other instruments offer in their own unique way to let's say the kid wants to learn guitar. You know, you can teach them how to do this. That's fine. Strum a few songs, play a few finger picking things. They learn some fine motor skills. They learn a bit of music reading and learn how to understand timing and that. Get them learning about rhythm. One thing that crosses the board across all musical instruments is you learn about rhythm and you learn about pitch. This is real base level stuff, right? So you learn about, you know, rhythm, which is when does the sound happen and how long does it last for? Okay. And is there a pattern to that rhythm? And then you have the pitch. Da 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 da. Okay. It's like you know, where on the frequency scale does that sound you know, happen? You know, is it a low sound or is it a high sound? You know, and so you're essentially, if you look at that Greek learning process of the quadrivium, you know, music I think is number 3. It's learning about how objects move through time. And, you know, music's very, you know, you don't even have to be a musician to get the value that you can get. You don't have to go and become a concert pianist or anything like that. Just developing some kind of level of proficiency with a musical instrument, with an understanding of some basic music theory. Like, you don't have to learn all the crazy jazz chords, guys. I'm not, you know, and all the weird time signatures and the strange fast rhythms and things. There's ways of exploring music to obtain great value that will present relatable skills just from even probably a bit more than just a surface level. You want to go a little bit deeper because, you know, we're Hermeticists, so we like to know a bit more than just, you know, things. But there's a value that can be extracted from music that will actually help you as if you decide to become a teacher. There's so many wonderful teaching analogies between music and Hermetics and just music in general. Whether you're talking about, you know, resonance, you know, you hit one guitar string, the A on one side of the room, and then the A string on the other guitar on the other side of the room starts to vibrate, sympathetic resonance. You know, we learn to flick that guitar string, you know, the way that we flick it to get into resonance with, say, the air element. You know, how do we flick the string, you know, so that we can, you know, get these things identifying, you know, like, you know, I probably need to work on that one a bit more, but essentially we're learning how to, you know, pick up on stuff, get familiar with it. And then, a great way to look at this is first you discern it. Oh, there's a thing. Then you identify with it. You spend time with it and you take ownership of it. Ah, yeah, cool. Okay. All right. I'm really getting it now. And then there's the, you know, the ability to apply your will to it. You know, you get your fingers around it. Once you pay enough attention, then you can do something with it. Elements are a great example of this. And then, of course, you know, we want to keep rinse and repeat, you know, discern, identify, apply will, you know, and then over, you know, that bakes it in so that we've got easy access to it. And so it's not hard for us because we've become so familiar with it. We can, you know, just click it on when we want. Very good. Because, you know, some of these experiences can be fleeting and we want to become masters of our experience. Don't we? Do we not? So yeah, picking your training partners, very important, because there's new value in exploring new things. And I tell you what, here's one for those of you who want to get a bit more occulty or esoteric, or I don't know, you know, um, this could be this one might not be for everybody. And if you experience a natural repulsion towards this for whatever reason, I would honor that. Okay, I don't. I am. What would I say? I'll just do it. So what you have is that I'm just going to pull one out. Okay, what's your initial impression of when you see this? Like I would say to the kids, I would play them a major chord or a minor chord on the guitar. I would say, is it a happy chord or is it a sad chord? I would find other ways for them to detect. I would create, the sad chords are easy to pick up on because they sound sad. The happy ones, you sometimes need the sad chord to contrast it to know the difference. You can put your mind inside this card and go, what am I noticing? This is a cups card, right? So this refers to the water element. The water element in a certain frame of reference, if you will, a certain state. Okay, now obviously the picture on the card is depicting a sort of an emotional state, if you will. There's other things on the card. There's a lot going on there, but you're just putting your mind inside the general idea of the card. And then, of course, before you do that, you might just grab the deck and just put your mind inside the deck, inside the whole deck, and go, okay, the completeness, like a book, because the tarot deck is essentially a book, pictorial book of deep, deep wisdom. What do you notice? So there's a heck ton of stuff going on with this, right? On top of the fact that this is like a really old deck. Well, it's pretty old, compared to my new one, which somebody got for me. There's, this one's this thick, and my new one's about this thick. Where is it? There we go. The new one's about that thick, I think. So, what do you pick up on? You're essentially imbuing yourself onto the thing. You spend enough time with the thing, there's going to be a kind of a back and forth, and eventually there could be an equalization where you've taken on some of the things of the thing and the thing has taken on some of the things of you. And that's why when you could go see a psychic and they perform some psychometry, or like you give them your your necklace that you wear all the time, or your ring, or your watch, or a family heirloom, and they will basically sort of like run a diagnostic of sorts on it. They'll put their mind in it, or they'll just pick up on impressions and they'll talk about it. And if somebody's been wearing that thing for a long time, you might be able to, you can pick up on the story of the object, but it's going to also have some leak over of the story of the person in it. So, once you learn 3 transformations and you can work between the strata and that, you can sort of, you can, move into, say, the astral space and explore the story and the history of the thing and of the person, because there's the person's signature will be on the thing. They'll leave I don't want to say they're going to leave a stain on it and vice versa. It's more like they leave an impression upon it. Like I've had guitar. I've been able to play guitars that have been quite old and very highly revered. Okay, so these instruments have been revered because of the quality of their build, the materials, the person who made it, people who have played it, who have all left a thing on it. And you pick up, like I played this. It was a Martin D. Oh man, it was something. Anyway, the bro paid about 20 grand for it, this guitar. or it was a 20 grand guitar, and I think he might have got it for 10 or something like this. It was possibly even more, actually, but he got it secondhand, obviously. But it was, it was a 60s or a 70s guitar, acoustic steel string guitar, and it was, it had been around for a while, and it was very well made. Man, you pick this thing up, it played itself. It was almost a self-playing guitar. It was just creamy. Like there was no resistance. It was so well built. It had all of this love in it. I honestly, a high quality instrument makes all the difference. If you go to Kmart and buy a Hello Kitty or a SpongeBob guitar, it might look like a guitar, and that might be about it. Okay, but this was a high quality instrument, but it had been very much cared for, and so there was a reflection of that, because it had no repair marks on it that I could see. So people would, if you're going to pay 10, 20, 40 grand, even 10 grand, even 5 grand, even a couple of G's on a guitar, man, you're going to look after that thing. I had a Les Paul I paid close to 5 for. I think it was 4.5. Man, I didn't want anyone else picking that thing up. It turned out to be a bit of a lemon, actually, but it was so beautiful. I almost didn't want to play it. I didn't want to wear a belt buckle. I cover it up, and then people would want to play it. I'm like, nah. Oh, come on, bro. I said, bro, you put a scratch on that thing. You got $200 or $300 for me to fix it. Oh, no, nah, sorry. Became too precious. Then I went and spent a couple of grand on an American standard Strat, and that thing was covered in nicks and dings and everything. It was much easier for me to play because it wasn't so pretty, but it still had a different kind of care in it. Like it broke my heart when I dropped it once, but it was fine. If I dropped the Les Paul, I'd hate to think it might have survived, but it would have had some pretty nasty stuff. I didn't have the cash to buy another one or have an array of them. I had a few guitars. I think I had about 7 at once, but they weren't all Les Pauls. But like I said, this thing this Martin guitar was just incredible to play, and incredible to be around, to pick up, and to, just spend time with, because you could, after, becoming a meditator and exploring kind of metaphysical skill set development, I came to develop an appreciation for high quality, and even if it wasn't like a $5,000 guitar, it may have just been a guitar that had been around for a long time, that hadn't, that it had been through many pairs of hands, or had just been well loved or been well played. It had a personality about it, if you will, and you could pick up on it quite easily. Drums are better. Maybe. I must say, the kinds of lessons you can pick up from a guitar and a drum kit individually, like, look, I'll just mention it because most people will know, but, Dave Grohl, the guy from that guy, he's pretty well known for playing drums and guitar, drummer in Nirvana, guitarist in Foo Fighters. Playing drums made me a better guitarist, and playing guitar made me a better drummer. I started with guitar and then I went to drums, and I found drums to be quite natural, even when I hadn't really been playing that much. I could sing and play drums, no problem. Singing and playing bass, that was a bit different. But these things all feed into each other. Like the more of your body is involved in the music, you're shaking the body out. It's like Tai Chi loosening. Playing drums is like Tai Chi loosening. You've got good posture. You're working on your body construction, and you're shaking things out and moving things. 3 transformations. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find it. And I'll put it in the chat so you can go check it out for yourself. Let's take PerseusArcaneAcademy.com. Why are you not loading up? I don't know what's going on here, man. It's doing some strange stuff. Huh. No, it's not letting me load it. Okay, so if you go to okay, here we go. So if you go to PerseusArcaneAcademy.com, you might have to look it up. Just type in Perseus Arcane Academy into the Google search or something like this, and then navigate to their free courses. There'll be one there called the 3 Transformations. And this is probably one of the highest value courses you can do to help you on your Hermetics journey, because it's going to teach you from a clairsentience perspective. What does that mean? It's going to teach you to feel like have a very satisfying, tangible, palpable, apparent experience of the difference between the 3 energy layers. So, you generally start off with the 2 transformations. Usually you start off with the first transformation, which is like, okay, there's energy. Oh, wow, there's this energy. This is vital energy. And then you learn how to slow it down and thicken it up. Now we're in the astral and everything's slower. And it feels different. Okay, it's more like a hydraulic sort of swimming pool effect. That's why when you see people doing Tai Chi, they're really slow. They're in this thick syrup, whereas the Vital's a bit sort of springier, and yeah, it's quite different. It's there, but it's different. It's much closer to the physical. And then, of course, you take that astral energy and then you're in there, and then you release space, and now you're in the mental body, in the spirit, and you learn how to move between these 3 phases. You send your mind out. You're building the ball, vital, slow it down, release time. Things get slower. Think of the Matrix bullet time, and everything just slows down. Release time. And then turn your hands around, and the energy will float up like a leaf on the breeze, or a balloon being released, a helium balloon. And then your mind will go out and you release space, and you'll be in the mental body. And you'll be able to learn how to do it without having to get your hands out. And, that takes some time. But like I said, first you've got to feel the stuff, get to know it, own it, apply your will to it, get familiar with it. Just like, hey, look, it's my finger. I'm pretty familiar with my finger. And then, you learn how to move between these states. But you start off with this clairsentience approach. It's very good. So yeah, Perseus Arcane Academy, guys, go check out. They're one of our friends here at the Phil Rice YouTube channel. Oh, okay. Yep. Cool. All right. Yeah. So you're getting to know the different, the lay of the land, the 3 major landmarks, and there's between them, between the vital and the astral body, you're going to traverse the this matrix, or this bridge that the energy travels up and down. But first of all, you get to know, oh, I'm on a strip of land. Okay, we're creating a vertical linear scale, and we start here, and then we learn how to get in touch with that, and then we move up here and go, oh, okay, and then we bounce between them. That's our contrast. That's our first polarity, if you will. Vital energy, astral energy, vital energy, astral energy. You move between them and you get to know the difference between the 2. Okay, I'm really familiar. I can put my hand on my heart and say, this one is, I would write down this experience like this. And then this astral is what it feels. Remember, we're working the water pole here, clairsentience. It's just a great front door, easy access point for determining where you are on the scale and moving between them, because you want clean separation. Imagine you're brushing your teeth. You don't need to be doing something, you're brushing your teeth in this part of the house, right? You don't need to be having one leg in the other part of the house and another arm in the other part of the house. You want to be in that space, that room where that function happens. You want to become familiar with what that aspect does, what that room is functional for. You got to get to know it, explore the length, girth, and width of it. Oh, okay. That's got me curious. Do you play, you got a guitar and a drum kit? I'd say from my own experience moving between instruments that, drums is a very, because there's more parts of your physicality engaged, you've got hands and feet involved. You can do that with a guitar too, but generally you're standing up and you're tapping your foot, if anything, and maybe stepping on a few pedals. Or maybe you're Angus Young or Slash and running around on the stage. I don't know. But one contrast might be is that the way you feel, the experience that's generated by the activity, guitar versus drums. Like even a guitar, like an acoustic guitar is going to have a different feeling to an electric guitar, which is slung down a bit lower generally and is on the other side of the room. The sound's coming out from a speaker on the other side of the room versus the resonating chambers up against your body. Oh, hang on, what do we got here? Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Yep. No, that's cool. But you can totally use familiar things somewhat related to develop the more you go through this development process in initiation into Hermetics and these new skills start to arise, your relationship to familiar things is going to change. And it's possible that, and here's an example. So I remember when I was living in Wellington, and that's like sort of the capital city of New Zealand, if you will. It's sort of the bottom of the North Island. So it's roughly in the middle of the two big major land masses. It's about there. That was when they banned smoking in sort of pubs and restaurants and just indoors basically at public sort of places and businesses and things. And so a whole bunch of us thought, well, no, this is a great opportunity. Let's all work together to stop smoking. It was a great idea. We had fellowship, support, and I think there was about maybe 5 or 6 of us, and all but one succeeded. And that's fine, whatever. But what I noticed is that once I really had a good break from smoking cigarettes, all the numbness that it creates with your taste and your smell and these types of things. Because basically, sometimes if you get used to the fact that you stink, like you don't notice it about yourself, you just become accustomed to it. So, you're fine with it, but everyone else is like, dude. I found that my tastes changed. So things that I used to enjoy eating, drinking, even some activities, but we'll stick with food and drink. I had to change the beer that I was drinking. I didn't like it anymore. It was like the cigarette had changed me. The smoking had changed the way that I perceived this particular beer that I would usually drink, and I didn't like it anymore. My preferences started to change. I was picking up on a different layer of the data, or there was different aspects of the data stream that was coming through that was like, it was just unpleasant now. And of course, when it came to, certain food choices, I started eating foods that I used to not like at all. Like I started having like blue cheese and mussels and mushrooms and, maybe not mussels. I used to eat mussels. But yeah, blue cheese and mushrooms and things like that. Like, I used to love those things. I mean, I still eat mushrooms from time to time, but, and I think that's because the smoking numbs your smell and taste capacities, and once they get fully reactivated, you have the ability to pick up on the value of things that maybe you couldn't perceive before, and also things that you were fine with. You now have a natural aversion or repulsion to them because they don't do it for you because they're gross, you know. And I think, if I look back on what I've noticed that's changed since I've been working through the Hermetic process, familiar activities, pastimes, eating preferences, it's all very similar. But, it's people you want to hang out with, situations. Since I got into meditation, especially, I got burnt out as a music teacher and a muso, to be fair. That was probably about 10 odd years ago. My business was insane, man. I was running this huge business, like huge for one person. Really needed an offsider to help me out, but I just took it and I got burned out, and I actually got tired of playing. But that's a whole nother story. I've talked about that heaps on other interviews and things like that. But when I discovered meditation and the stillness and the silence, I wanted to go out less. I didn't want to listen to music anymore. Or the kind of music that I'd listen to was more just like real simple, mellow stuff, no singing. If it was singing, it wasn't words, because when you're listening to music that's got words in it, you're sort of engaging your intellectual faculty to make sense, to understand the words. So, my preferences changed quite dramatically. And I have to say, it was quite abrupt for me and other people in my life. They were like, they couldn't understand. And I understand how that may have been quite jarring because I just there were these overnight, suddenly I became hypersensitive, within a short space of time. Overnight might be a bit fast, but I just wanted to explore new things. And then I just wanted to cut back on all the other noise, because I realized that, like, wow, I was caught up in this really sort of like astral satisfaction, if you will, feeding the beasts that I didn't like anymore. And I just couldn't do it. It was like, why would I do that? And and people couldn't understand it. They couldn't get it. It's like, bro, you used to be a hot muso, bro. What's going on? It's like, man, I'm just not into it anymore. In fact, I found something I want more, and that stuff just gets in the way. I've tried getting back into guitar and music and stuff all over the years, trying to find a music style that I like, or even just pick it up and play with tunings, or that's just not there. And that's okay. The sooner I made peace with that, the better. It was fine. But Phil, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's funny, actually. I know a few people like that. My mate Greg, who I'm going to be on the Awakening Insider show, he had a similar experience, and he was like a world-class conductor. He went to the conducting champs and orchestra conducting in Romania and came second. He was like studied violin in where did he go? Austria. And he was up on stage doing conducting once, and he just felt his hands get pushed down. Like, that's it, no more. Okay, that part of my life's over. And much to the chagrin, if that's the right word, of others. But that's okay. Anyway, how you guys doing? You all right? I just need to do a couple of shout outs here. So I want to say, that's pretty crap, that one, isn't it? Hang on. Let's see. Okay. No, I can't do it. Okay. I just want to say, guys, if you haven't already, please. It didn't work. Why didn't that work? I have a funny feeling that the social media landscape is going to be going through some seismic changes this year, for better or for worse. And I'd like to encourage you all to go sign up for my newsletter that I haven't really made any newsletters for. It's more about just keeping direct contact, because right now YouTube is the gatekeeper. So if they don't like me, we lose our connection. Then I have to start again. If you go to Substack, give me your email address. I've got a. I'm gonna start flexing. I'm gonna start making use of them writing chops too. So I'm gonna be writing about a whole bunch of stuff. But Substack offers a pretty diverse range of ways of connecting with people. I can do audio, video, text, stuff like this. But essentially, it's just you don't have to buy the subscription or anything like that. It's more like sign up so that if anything goes on, I've got your things. We can keep in touch and I can keep you informed. I'm glad you're doing wonderfully well, Tony. That's wonderful to hear. Wonderfully well. That's super wonderful. Tony's an old mate from way back. We go way back. Way, way back. All the way back. Maybe a bit too far back. Oh, no, not that far. Those old days, eh, bro? So thank you for those of you who have gone to substack.com. I'm very grateful. And, and of course, the other member of the team back in the day. Thank you, Randy. Yeah, we had a lot of fun, didn't we, lads? A lot of fun indeed. Making lots of noise. And the noise got better over time, actually. I remember when we started getting pretty good. Yeah, a lot of fun times back then. And yes, I am due for a visit. So I'll let everyone know when I'm heading back down that way. Now, I'm going to put this one up because this is like an inside kind of joke, I guess. But there's an energy drink here in New Zealand called V, and it's a quite a famous one. Basically, we had Red Bull and V, and now there's all these other ones. But back in the day, the main two were Red Bull and V, and and the other one was Lift Plus, but nobody really drank that. That was. But the V's, oh my gosh, yeah, we had this wall of these cans of V, and in the practice room because we used a practice room at my work, and in the warehouse, and yeah, we were bandmates, yeah, back in the day. Glad to hear it. I tell you what, man. There's it's funny when you see one of the bros' cars, and it's just like the passenger wheel well, like sorry, where the passenger sits and where the feet are. It's like cans everywhere of like these drinks. That emoji says it all, doesn't it? Funny. If you, I guess so. I tried to be. I was pretty bossy, wasn't I? That's all right. They were good times. I have to say, as the years went on, once I started doing more sort of, I guess, getting out into the world a bit more with music, like playing, because I started, I had a band up here with a couple of guys, and it was good to mature as someone who was kind of doing a lot of the management, because in the early days, I guess, oh no, we were all pretty young back then, and learning how to work with groups of people and work with sort of social dynamics is a very worthwhile skill, guys. Because at some point you might end up working with children. Oh, that's beautiful, bro. Thank you. Yeah, same right at you, Tony. And I'm so glad that you took it so much further, bro. Cruise ships, playing in bands, a bunch of bands. Tony's, and you've become. I've seen some of your skills, bro. Your singing and your knowledge base and your understanding of the principles of music, especially from a live perspective. About when I've heard you talk about it, but, bro, you got chops I never developed there, brother. Just even purely by experience, from a superficial point of view. That's as much as I know, just from what we've talked about and what I've seen. So you, bro, awesome, and Randy too. Actually, like over the years, like Randy's the tech wizard, man. Heck of a bass player. He had some insane toys. That he's got one of those 6x, I think is it 6x10 or a 6x12 Goliath SWR cabinet that was just insane. That thing would bring a house down. So, but yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to disappear in probably about 10 minutes. So if anyone's got any questions, please put them into the chat and I'll bring them up. But yeah, I think, if we just do a quick recap on what we've talked about. 6x10, Randy. 6x10. Man, that thing was scary when I first saw that. I'm like going, bro, do you need something? Do you need a weapon that big? Are you compensating? Turns out it was actually perfect. It's actually, I'm going to say this because I've had 15-inch speaker like from when I was playing bass, and then I played what was it? There was a Fender Rumble, I think it was. They were quite popular for a time, and there was a 15, and then there was a couple of 10s, just a couple of 10s in a combo. Man, a couple of 10s, man, they hit you mid. Man, that was just. Man, that was wild, man. Like I was so impressed. I went, I don't want to play on big subs anymore. I want to play on punchy mid-range speakers now. I'd have a sub in the back though, You'd have it at the back because you got to fill out that space a bit. But as far as like for funky and just hitting, moving things around. Funny that. Ultraclaves for Medium. Could you give us a brief synopsis of your most crazy magic experience you can share online? I've had a bunch of them, and I continue to have them. And that is one of the great fruits of being an active meditative practicer who's constantly seeking to expand upon that arena of interest. So I'm going to share one with you. This is one I've shared before, but this was probably a peak experience, and I'll make it a Barden-related one, actually. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you is the first time that I'm not going to go into detail, okay, about what all of the experience, but I'm going to give you a. I'll tell you this one. Okay, check this out. So I'm lying in bed one night, and I got my head on the bed, on the pillow, and I'm looking up, and I close my eyes because I do a meditation before I go to sleep. Maybe and run through a prayer. And then I get this weird sort of like, I feel like I need to open my eyes. And I opened my eyes and I looked up, and there was this kind of like there was a light on the ceiling. Like it was this like round kind of light. And it was like, well, it must be the moon coming through the curtains. And then I was like, wait a minute. The only time the moon creates a light spot on the wall is at the foot at the other end of the room, because the moon comes up over that. I was like, what? Is it a reflection? I'm like going, looking around. It's like, no, there's nothing like, there's no light coming in. And this thing was like it globule, a moving globule it wasn't quite an orb because it was sort of shifting a bit, and it was on the ceiling, like right above my head. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm like going, am I asleep? And I'm like, nah, I'm not asleep. I'm looking at this thing. So I'm looking for it probably for 2 to 3 minutes. And I'm just like going, man, this is curious as. I think this was probably around 2015, once I'd been meditating for a bit and I'd sort of gotten into dream work. And so I was like, And then all of a sudden it just disappeared. And I'm like, wow, that was pretty wild. And I thought, okay, sweet as. It was a curiosity. I didn't probably respond with, that's wild. But it was a strange occurrence. And it wasn't invasive. It was just like, here's a thing. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. So this was something that I didn't necessarily bring on myself from doing a particular exercise. And, what I did is that I went to sleep. I had the wildest night, man. It was beyond compare. Absolutely beyond compare. sticks with me to this day. I wish I had actually recorded the date of it. I know my mate Greg, because I know some people have had similar types of experiences. They've been unique, but essentially it'll often start with this light coming in your room. And, I was just like, well, there's a weird kind of light. It was like white, silver, and with some blue in it. And it was like hovering like at the ceiling. I was like, wow, this is out of it. And then, yeah, man, what came on after that? Whew, I'll tell you a couple of things. So first thing is I had this really, really vivid, lucid dream. Presuming it was a dream. I don't know. It was unlike any other dream experience I've had. I was in my room, and the furniture was pretty much arranged the same, but the colors were much more primary. Like the reds were like way redder and much more solid, but there was less things in the room. There was more primary colors being highlighted, but there were less items in the room. But all the major pieces were there, and everything was solid. Like everything was solid, man. Like I couldn't put my hand through it or nothing. Okay, and then of course I walked around the room, and then I looked in the mirror and I saw myself, and there I was, and my eyes were like this. I looked like I'd smoked a joint or something. They were like flaming red, man. Like it was like, whoa. It didn't look evil or anything. It was just kind of like, I wonder if it's analogous to the fire element through the eyes or something. But yeah, this was like hardcore. Okay, just so you know, guys, once I finish explaining this, I'm going to have to log off because the software says they're going to shut me off in a minute. Because I've got the free version, if I didn't have the free version, I would carry on. This is on you guys. I'll bake the bread. You fellas can help me get some ingredients if you like. Go sign up for my Substack if you like. Oh, not that one. That one there. Go sign up there. Give me your email address, and if you're feeling generous, Substack's way kinder to me than in YouTube is. YouTube takes like a 30% cut of any cash that comes through, man. And they take forever, and they're a pain in the ass, to be honest. You guys help me out with a subscription either here on YouTube or on Substack. Throw a couple of bucks in. This all goes towards me upgrading the production level of the channel, the software. This thing here, this animation, EV Mux, that goes away. I get to use my green screen, and we can do all sorts of funky, cool stuff. Anyway, back to the story before I have to disappear. Well, I don't have to, but I will because I've been on for a couple of hours. Following that, I remember waking up, and I'm lying on my bed going, wow, because I just had this dream. The next thing, something gets up off my bed. I don't see it, but I feel it. I feel the bed lift up, and something lifts up off the bed like somebody was sitting on it. That was like, whoa, that was a bit freaky, that one. And then the third thing, I'll share three. The third thing, and this is really what kicked a bunch of motivations into action. I sleep next to a double-doored wardrobe. I lie on my side and sleep. A hand came out of the wardrobe. It was me. I came out of the wardrobe, but I didn't see anything apart from the hand. It latched onto my arm, and it ripped me out of my body. And I closed my eyes because I didn't want to open them, because if it was overwhelming, it might pull me out of the experience. I just wanted to experience it. And I was getting pulled through this wind, and I've heard about it. It's called the astral wind, apparently, maybe. And I'm pulled through it, and it's like, whoa, and it's really loud and all this. And then I kind of snap awake, and I'm lying on the floor halfway through my bed and the wardrobe. And then I push myself up, and then I'm seeing the layers of the bed. And that's all I'm going to share for now, because this thing's going to cut off in a sec. I'm grateful to you all. Thank you so much for joining me. I am grateful for you all for supporting this channel in whichever way you do, whether you like, subscribe, share, comment, sign up for Substack, send some bucks to help support the channel. I've got more interviews and things coming. But yeah, I'm really, really grateful for you guys. It's fun to hang out and just talk about this kind of thing. And I've got plenty more stories too, that I'm actually happy to share. There's some things that I won't share, but I know that these stories can be encouraging to help you with your practice. And so there are some things that I'm allowed to share and some things that I'm not. You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Ciao, brother. Glad you enjoyed. I'll see you guys again soon. All right. Stay well, everyone.